welcome back to Zach Talks Hawks. This is the place where we talk Seattle Seahawks football with, well, me, your host, Zach. And I'm excited to dive into Week 13 NFL football with you. Wasn't able to get Tuesday's review show out after Seattle handled the Arizona Cardinals 16-6. Managing to capture first place in the NFC West, but we're here now to get your Week 13 preview show. I was also able to stream my live show. It's not my live show, but it's the live show that I'm always invited back to. Seahawks Coast to Coast on Joe Stevens' Seahawk Talk YouTube channel. I want to encourage you to check him out and check out our latest, which is now made available for you in the live tab of this channel. So every Tuesday night we're going to get on. You're going to see that. We're going to try this going live every Tuesday, talking Seahawks football. So just in case if I don't get a Tuesday show up, you can see me Tuesday night all the time, live on Seahawks Coast to Coast. Let's hit the road in talking about the game that is on the horizon for Seattle here this week. Seattle's going to play the Jets. They're going to travel cross country. It's a 1 o'clock slot. Historically, Seattle's really good at these kind of games. And they're playing a Jets squad that is, well, dysfunctional is probably the kindest word I can use at this point for the Jets. Their organization is just scrambling to find any kind of answers rather than the one that's staring right in front of them. The problem is Aaron Rodgers on this team and what he brings to a football team, but that's another story for an off season, maybe, where we talk about the dysfunction of Aaron Rodgers. But I want to talk about the Jets as a whole. The Jets are 3-8 this season. They've scrambled. They fired their head coach. They fired their GM. They're trying to figure out who's calling plays on the offensive side of the football. They took away their defensive-minded head coach, and shocker, their defense is now worse. And, well, now they're coming off of a bye week, trying to get it all together, playing against a upstart Seahawks club, which has looked phenomenal coming out of their bye week a few weeks ago, now reclaiming first place in their division with their sights forward on a playoff spot. These teams can't be in any more opposite directions in terms of how they're trending, and I want to talk to you today about the keys to victory for the Seahawks playing the Jets. And my priority for this game, normally I give you 3 keys to victory. I'm going to give you 3 players to look after in one position group. It is going to focus on the Jets trio of elite corners versus Seattle's trio of elite wide receivers. We have, on one side, we have Sauce Gardner, we have DJ Reed, and then we have Michael Carter II, who's the Jets nickel corner, who's been playing really well this season, versus Seattle's dynamic trio, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Tyler Lockett. These 3 for Seattle have really started to come out of their shell with the emergence of JSN in the last few weeks. It really looks like JSN's trying to make a run at the number 1 wide receiver spot, but it's clear in terms of how this team is run. You're going to have that big-bodied wideout DK on the outside, and JSN's going to take on that Tyler Lockett role as Lockett eventually fades out as he gets older in this group. But Lockett's still got a lot in the tank, is very dependable for Geno Smith, and this trio is going to be up against a very talented corner secondary with the Jets. Despite a few up-and-down performances by the Jets, their coverage is actually pretty good. Their yards allowed in terms of passing is second in the NFL, and this trio is responsible for what goes on in their win and loss column. You can see throughout the season that the Jets have struggled to get offensive energy moving, and ultimately it relies on its defense to be elite, even without Robert Saleh making sure that his fingers are on this defense. Thank goodness the personnel is still there to carry out the vision that the Jets might have. This team is going to try to shut down Seattle's aerial attack, and that's why I think Seattle's running game is going to be super important for this week's game. You got to get Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet rolling. You have key additions on the defensive side with Uchenna Nwosu coming back for Seattle this week. That is huge for this team to get some edge depth and to try to disrupt a very limited Aaron Rodgers. I've watched a lot of Aaron Rodgers film this season. He does not look the same. He refuses to set his feet and pass correctly. He's always throwing off of his back foot. I can't wait for my friends to watch this game and to see what I've been talking about all season. Aaron Rodgers is not healthy. He has not played a single healthy snap this season because he refuses to set his feet like he used to as a gunslinging quarterback, and it's just not happening with him this season. And Father Time always wins, and it seems like he's coming after the New York Jets quarterback room. So with that said, Seattle's going to really rely on their pass rush, which has been really good at creating quarterback pressures all year long. But this game is going to be won not by that matchup. It's going to be won by this trio of wide receivers versus this trio of cornerbacks. And if the Jets have the upper hand, they could very well force Seattle into a running-based game. And we really haven't seen a game this season where the running attack carries the Seattle Seahawks to victory. That is the only reason why I would cause a pause for Seattle fans this week. Really, I think that on paper, this team is in a right place. They're trending upwards. The Jets are in disaster and dysfunction. I just don't see a way in which the Jets pull this one out at a stadium where Seattle historically has never lost at, MetLife Stadium. They are going to walk in cross country 1 o'clock game where they're historically really good at doing all that and come out with a victory. I predict that this is going to be at least a 17-point victory for Seattle. I really see this being a big blowout game. I think that it might be a 35-15 kind of game for Seattle where everything just clicks, everything works right. And you're going to watch a complete game, really, for the first time this season from the Seattle Seahawks. And that's my analysis on this game. Watch out for the trio of elite cornerbacks for the Jets play against the trio of Seattle wide receivers. And if those corners can force Seattle into a running game, they might have a chance. But otherwise, I think Seattle's really going to roll with this one this week. Let's take a look at our predictions. I got my notebook here. I'm ready to go. I was really nervous for a little while going into last week. The first 4 games last week, I lost all 4 of them, and I was sweating bullets because I was very confident in some of these games, and they didn't go my way. But then we proceeded to not lose a single game past that. We went 9-4 last week, bringing our record up to 97-83 on the year. I kept saying it since the beginning of the season. If I can go 500, that would feel awesome. And now we're in a really good spot to do a lot of damage moving forward as the season becomes clearer and clearer down the stretch. Let's take a look here at our slate of games moving forward into Week 13 and make some predictions for the NFL season. We have a trio of Thursday night football games this week. Of course, you're going to be watching this tomorrow, which is Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving from me to you. And you're going to be treated with 3 pretty good matchups with some good storylines. Chicago goes on the road and plays Detroit in their traditional Thanksgiving game. Look, Chicago is finding every which way to lose football games, and Detroit just seems to be a juggernaut right now. Take me to another Detroit victory at home. I don't think this game is going to be particularly close. It might be close going into the fourth quarter where the Lions become their own worst enemy, but I just think talent wins out here and Detroit gets the victory. New York Giants with probably Drew Lock now as their quarterback. Looks like Tommy DeVito is injured, going on the road and playing Cooper Rush in Dallas, playing the Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys don't know if they want to tank or if they want to make a playoff push, and I think this theme continues against a really bad Giants team. I love me some Drew Lock. I wish he would still be a Seahawk, but at the end of the day, he's got to do what's best for him and his career, and I'm going to pick Dallas to get the victory here. Man, wouldn't it be poetic if Dallas just fought back to like a 500 season, and they're really primed to do that with their schedule down the stretch. I think Dallas is going to win their matchup on Thanksgiving Day. And the last matchup for Thanksgiving is Miami on the road in Green Bay. I think this game has a possibility of bringing in some bad weather for the Dolphins. We're now nearing December, which is a really bad month for the Miami Dolphins historically on the road in cold weather conditions. I think Green Bay has to win this game in order to keep pace in their division. They just have more on the line when it comes to what their playoff picture looks like. The Buffalo Bills can actually clinch the playoffs this week with a win and a couple other things falling their way. I think the Tua train is starting to run out of ambition. We'll put it that way. Tua's been playing really well, but it's just circumstances for the Dolphins this season. They aren't in a really good position to fight for a playoff spot. I'm gonna pick Green Bay as Miami's schedule gets tougher, the weather gets tougher, and this matchup in Green Bay does not present a very advantageous spot for Miami Dolphins fans. Give me Green Bay here for the last game of Thanksgiving. A Black Friday game is also on tap for this week. Las Vegas goes on the road to Kansas City. Las Vegas's head coach came out and said, "We are the worst team in the NFL playing the best team in the NFL." And when your head coach doesn't even believe in you, I certainly won't either. Give me the Kansas City Chiefs. In what has been a weird season for them, they are not as good as their record indicates, but they are certainly good enough to handle the Raiders, who are probably starting Aiden O'Connell this week as Gardner Minshew goes down with a season-ending injury. Our Sunday slate of games. First one is Houston on the road going to Jacksonville to play Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. The Jaguars are in a terrible spot this season. I don't really know why Doug Peterson is still the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Houston needs a bounce-back game in the worst way. This is the perfect matchup for Houston. Give me Houston on the road. This is probably the hardest game of the week for me to pick. Indianapolis on the road going to play the Patriots, and that's just simply because I think the Patriots have a lot of decent pieces. I just don't know if they have the coaching to pull this off. Indy has, in my opinion, pretty decent coaching, but not enough pieces. And I'm going to pick the Patriots at home. If the venue was flip-flopped, I'd probably pick Indy. This matchup is weird. If you're into just weird football, this could be your game to watch this week. I just think there's just going to be mistakes by both sides. Looks like Drake May's the answer in New England. I'm happy for them to find their franchise quarterback. And we don't really know about AR in Indianapolis. He's been playing well since he's come back, but not anywhere near a premium starting quarterback level. The Los Angeles Chargers, coming off of their defeat on Monday Night Football, traveling to Atlanta to play Kirk Cousins in the Falcons, who need a win in the worst way. I believe in the weapons of Atlanta's offense. It's just, can Kirk Cousins piece it all together? He's been the big X factor for them this season, and I'm not quite sure if that's going to bode well for them down the stretch, but it will bode well for them this game. Give me Atlanta getting the win in a week where they need it, because Tampa Bay is trying to climb up the ranks to capture that division. Seattle versus the Jets, we already talked about. I'm picking Seattle. Tennessee on the road going to DC to play the Washington Commanders. It's crazy to think that Tennessee is starting to turn things around, but it looks like with decent quarterback play, they're doing just that. You never quite know what you're going to get out of Will Levis. He's kind of like the premium version of Anthony Richardson, playing against the Washington Commanders, which they're coming back down to earth. You can start to see the flaws in their team. Their defense isn't really great. They're not super dynamic up front. And that's why I think Tennessee, with the sort of improbability of their offense, is going to wind up winning this game. I'm picking Tennessee on the road, getting a big win for that franchise against a division hopeful in Washington, knocking them down one more slot in the loss column this week. Give me Tennessee over Washington. Pittsburgh on the road. I actually don't have this one circled, but I know who I'm going to pick. Pittsburgh on the road going to play the Cincinnati Bengals. We're starting to see the Russell Wilson that appeared in Denver now in Pittsburgh. He's taking a lot of sacks. He's fumbling. He's not executing in the red zone. Playing against the Bengals, who Joe Burrow is playing out of his mind, and yet the Bengals can't win a game. I think the AFC North is weird and wild and crazy, and these division games records mean nothing. If you don't believe me, check out Pittsburgh versus Cleveland last week. I just think that this week Cincinnati finally gets a win against a division rival, excuse me, and they wind up pulling this one out and getting a victory in what will be a really close game. Arizona goes on the road licking their wounds out of the bye week after they played us, going to Minnesota. Minnesota is still hanging in there, and Sam Darnold, although bummed up, looks like he's going to be healthy enough to play. If he wasn't healthy enough to play, I'd pick Arizona in a heartbeat, but I think Sam Darnold's actually going to be the X factor in this game. Watch Minnesota's defense to get at Kyler Murray. If Arizona doesn't get back to their rushing attack like they refused to do against Seattle, watch for Minnesota to win this one big. I do think Arizona makes adjustments. James Conner is going to get a lot of touches in order to try to compensate for the sins of last week, but ultimately Minnesota takes this one. The Rams go on the road and play the New Orleans Saints this week as well, in a game in which we as Seahawks fans should keep an eye on. Looks like we might be looking at the Rams down the stretch as they try to put their season together, playing against the very inconsistent New Orleans Saints. They do this every year. They are so flip-floppity, and you never know what team you're going to get out of New Orleans. I just believe in the consistency of McVay and Stafford to get this one done. I'm going to take the Rams on the road, getting a big win in New Orleans. The Bake Show and the Buccaneers go on the road and play the Carolina Panthers. It was really surprising last week that Carolina almost beat Kansas City. I think Bryce Young is playing some of his best football as a pro. I just don't think they have the pieces to beat a really talented Tampa Bay team that's trying to make a push for their own division. It kind of mirrors the NFC West, where nobody really wants to win it, and now it's starting to get to crunch time and people have to actually start contending. I think Baker Mayfield's up for the task, and he's going to get the win on the road in Carolina. Philly going on the road and playing Baltimore in what will be probably the game of the week with this matchup. Man, I went back and forth on this one for a long time. Saquon Barkley is a monster, and I think that he should be the MVP of the league right now, going up against the Ravens, who have Derrick Henry, and Derrick Henry is step in step with Saquon in terms of the rushing title, and you have Lamar Jackson, who's trying to get the MVP, and there's just so many awesome storylines here. This is a must-watch this week. I'm going to pick Baltimore. I believe in their coaching more. That's what separates these two teams in my mind. Give me Baltimore at home with a big win against Philadelphia. San Francisco travels to Buffalo this week. Man, Brock Purdy is trying his hardest to get back in shape to play against the Bills, and I hope he does it because San Francisco is just so banged up. They're trying really hard to stay in step with this division. I just think injuries is too much for them. I think Buffalo is really good. I'd expect the same kind of game Seattle versus Buffalo had, not really close. I think Buffalo runs away with this one and takes a win at home. And then lastly, Monday Night Football. This game actually got flexed, I think. Cleveland on the road in Denver playing the Broncos. I love Jameis Winston, and I wanted to pick him so bad for this matchup. I just need to see it one more week for Cleveland in order to trust Jameis and this offense to put it all together. Look, Denver is clicking right now. Bo Nix looks like he's in contention for Rookie of the Year. I don't really care for Sean Payton as a human being, but as a football coach, he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. And right now, Denver's cruising. I'm picking Denver to get the win on Monday Night Football. And those are your picks for the week. Can't wait to talk to you again in a little while about how Seattle fares with the Jets. Hopefully I can get your Tuesday show out for you. If you like what you see here, please like, comment, and subscribe. What do you think about this matchup against the Jets? Do you think, like me, that it's going to be as easy as I think? I really think that this team is primed for a game where they put it all together. This is going to be the week where they do it. I want to hear from you down in the comments if you think the same. Or if you're not a Seahawks fan, what do you think about my predictions? We've been doing really well with those this season. Can't wait to talk to you more about Seattle Seahawks football in a little while, but for the meantime, my name is Zach for Zach Talks Hawks, and I can't wait to talk to you again here real soon.